What if the person you trusted most, the one who vowed to love you forever, was quietly pulling the strings of your entire life? I thought I was in control. I thought I was the husband, the one making decisions. But I was wrong. She was always 2 steps ahead. Every choice, every moment, every accident that changed me, it wasn't fate. It was her plan. From the very beginning, my wife had been shaping me, molding me, turning me into someone I never thought I'd be. And by the time I realized what she was doing, it was already too late. This is the story of how I went from being her husband to becoming the wife she always wanted. My name is Daniel Hart. I'm 36 years old, married for nearly 10 years, and until recently, I believed my life was steady, predictable, even comfortable. I worked as a mid-level project manager in a quiet office, while my wife, Elena, thrived in her career as a therapist. People often said we balanced each other, while her calm confidence smoothing over my nervous edges, my steady reliability grounding her restless brilliance. I thought that balance was what made our marriage so strong. But looking back now, I see that maybe it was never balance at all. Maybe she was steering from the very beginning. Elena had a way of speaking that made you want to listen, even if you didn't agree. She had this serene patience, a smile that disarmed every argument, and a tone that made her suggestions feel like your own ideas. I used to joke that she could sell sand in a desert. What I didn't realize was that she wasn't selling me anything. She was slowly rewriting me, molding me into a version of myself that fit her secret vision. At first, it was small. She'd laugh gently at the way I slouched in my chair, telling me to sit straighter, to carry myself with more elegance. She bought me expensive skincare products, saying they'd help me look fresh and youthful. I thought it was sweet, even flattering. She cared about me, about how I presented myself. I didn't question it. Why would I? When someone loves you, you trust them. Then came the clothes. Try this, she'd say, slipping a silk robe over my shoulders after a shower. Doesn't it feel nice? And it did. Softer than anything I'd worn. She'd watch my expression closely, as if she was waiting for something, and when I smiled despite myself, she'd nod knowingly, like a piece of a puzzle had clicked into place. The thing is, Elena never forced me. She didn't have to. She planted ideas like seeds and waited, watering them with patience until they sprouted. When I hesitated, she'd tilt her head, look at me with that gentle disappointment that made me feel guilty for resisting. And so I gave in again and again, thinking it was harmless, thinking it was just part of marriage. But late at night, lying awake beside her, I began to sense something deeper. I'd catch the way she studied me when she thought I wasn't looking. I'd hear the careful choice of words when she praised me, phrases that pushed me subtly in a direction I couldn't quite name. It was like being guided down a path with my eyes half closed, only realizing how far I'd walked when the trail behind me disappeared. I didn't know it then, but Elena had a plan. A long, deliberate plan. And I was at the center of it. It started with what seemed like harmless habits. Elena loved shopping, and I didn't think much of it when she began bringing home things for me, too. At first, it was crisp shirts, softer fabrics than I was used to, lighter colors than I would have chosen. "You look so approachable in this," she'd say, buttoning the collar herself, her eyes shining with approval. I'd wear it, because why not? It pleased her. But soon, the clothes shifted. The shirts grew slimmer, hugging my frame in ways that made me self-conscious. The pants she picked were tapered, flowing, almost delicate compared to the stiff trousers I'd worn for years. And when I hesitated, she'd laugh softly. "Don't worry, Dan. Fashion is just about expression. You'll get used to it." Her compliments became a kind of reward system. If I wore what she suggested, she praised me, kissed my cheek, slipped her arm through mine as though proud to be seen with me. If I stuck to my old wardrobe, her smiles thinned, her eyes lingered on me with quiet disapproval, though she never said a harsh word. It was enough to make me want her approval, enough to steer me her way, without realizing it. One evening, after dinner, she asked me to sit with her in the living room. She poured wine, set soft music playing, and handed me a small box wrapped in silver paper. "For you," she said simply. Inside was a satin pajama set, pale blue, with tiny pearl buttons. I laughed nervously, but she just touched my hand and whispered, "Just try them tonight." For me. That night, slipping into them, I felt ridiculous and yet strangely comfortable. The fabric cooled against my skin, softer than anything I'd owned. Elena brushed my hair back with her fingers, kissed me on the forehead, and whispered, "See? You look perfect." Her gaze lingered longer that night, like she was seeing not who I was, but who I was becoming. Over the weeks, more little changes crept in. She suggested I use her moisturizer in the mornings. She trimmed my eyebrows one afternoon, claiming it was just to clean them up. She insisted we join a new gym together, but steered me toward yoga classes instead of weights. "It'll help your posture," she reasoned, smiling that soft smile that made resistance feel foolish. I didn't notice it then, but my reflection was shifting my clothes softer, my posture straighter, my movements more controlled. And Elena, she watched every change with a quiet satisfaction, as though each adjustment was part of a blueprint only she could see. And yet, beneath her tenderness, there was something chilling in her patience. She wasn't rushing me. She didn't need to. She knew I was already walking willingly into the role she had written for me. The shift from subtle to undeniable happened so gradually that at first, I convinced myself it was normal. That's the thing about Elena, she never forced, never demanded. She guided, she suggested. And I followed, almost without question. One Saturday morning, she walked into the bedroom carrying a shopping bag with the kind of excitement I usually only saw during holidays. "I found something for you," she said, her voice light, but her eyes serious. Inside the bag was a tailored blazer, cream-colored, with delicate stitching along the lapels. It wasn't feminine exactly, but it wasn't what a man would normally wear either. I hesitated, holding it between my fingers, feeling the softness. "Go on, try it," she encouraged. I slipped it on. It fit perfectly, as though it had been custom-made for me. The fabric hugged my shoulders in a way that made me feel different. Not stronger, but softer. Lighter. Her smile widened. "Beautiful. You have no idea how this suits you, Daniel." The word she used, beautiful, hung in the air. I chuckled awkwardly, but she didn't take it back. She leaned in, straightened the lapel, and whispered, "This is who you are." That night, she took a brush to my hair, carefully parting and shaping it as we sat on the sofa. "Your face is too handsome to hide," she murmured. When she dabbed a bit of tinted balm on my lips, I pulled back. "Elena, this is too much." Her expression softened, but her grip on my wrist was firm. "No, Daniel. It's not too much. It's just more honest." I didn't know what she meant, but the conviction in her tone silenced me. From then on, her steps grew bolder. She signed us up for a couple's photo shoot without asking. When the day came, she dressed me in soft linen trousers, a pastel blouse, and that cream blazer. The photographer never batted an eye. Instead, he complimented how natural we looked together. Elena glowed beside me, her hand always resting proudly on mine. And then came the party. It was a work gathering, and Elena insisted on choosing my outfit. When she laid out the clothes, slim-cut trousers, a flowing silk shirt with subtle ruffles at the collar, I froze. "Elena, people will notice." "Good," she said, her tone calm but sharp. "It's time they did." Her certainty unsettled me, but I gave in because her approval had become my anchor. At the party, whispers circled. Curious glances darted my way, but Elena stood tall, her arm looped through mine. She introduced me not as her husband, but as her partner, her other half. Every time I shifted uncomfortably, she squeezed my hand, reminding me silently that I was exactly where she wanted me. That night, as we returned home, I finally asked, "Why are you doing this?" She only smiled, kissed my cheek, and said, "Because, Daniel, I'm not changing you. I'm revealing you." Her words chilled me more than any argument could. Because deep down, I feared she was right. By midweek, the changes were no longer subtle. Elena had started arranging our mornings, suggesting routines that reshaped my entire sense of self. She picked my clothes, advised on skincare, and even suggested exercises that made my movements softer, more controlled. Each recommendation came wrapped in care, each adjustment accompanied by compliments that left me wanting her approval more than my own comfort. One evening, she set up a home spa in our bathroom. Candles lined the counters, a faint scent of lavender filling the air. "Daniel, you work so hard," she said, her fingers brushing mine as she handed me a robe. "You deserve this." I slipped into the robe, feeling its silky weight against my skin. She guided me to the mirror and gently tilted my chin. "See yourself," she whispered. "Really see." The reflection startled me. My jawline seemed softer, my posture straighter, my eyes brighter. I looked like someone I didn't recognize, yet someone who felt undeniably real. Elena smiled, sensing my hesitation. "You're beautiful," she said again, the word heavy with conviction. "Not just how you look, but how you are becoming." Her hands moved to adjust the collar of the robe, and for a moment, I froze, wondering if this was affection or a subtle control I couldn't yet name. "You trust me, right?" she asked. "Yes," I whispered, almost without thinking. "Then let go," she said simply. "Let me guide you." That night, she guided me through every step, brushing my hair, applying a gentle tint to my lips, smoothing the fabric of my robe over my shoulders. With each act, I felt the walls of my old identity crumble. Resistance felt foolish, almost impossible. In the days that followed, she introduced more deliberate changes. My wardrobe slowly transformed into soft fabrics, pastel tones, and flowing lines. She even suggested a manicure, claiming it would complete the look for a special evening she had planned. At first, I laughed, saying it was unnecessary. But her eyes calm, unwavering, made me doubt myself. "It's not about what anyone else sees," she said. "It's about who you are becoming." The truth hit me like a wave. I was no longer making choices for myself. Every suggestion she offered had an invisible thread, and I had been walking along it willingly. By the end of that week, I realized I was changing, and there was no going back. Elena wasn't just shaping my appearance, she was reshaping my very identity. And the terrifying part? I wanted her to. By the following week, my life felt like it was moving along two separate tracks. On the surface, I was Daniel Hart, husband and professional, interacting with colleagues, friends, and family like I always had. But underneath, in private, I was someone entirely different, a version Elena had meticulously shaped, someone softer, more delicate, more attuned to her vision. One evening, she suggested we attend a small dinner with her friends. "They've been asking to see you," she said, her tone casual, but there was a spark in her eyes that made my stomach twist. When we arrived, the moment we stepped through the door, I felt at the stares, the whispered observations. Elena had dressed me carefully, a flowing silk blouse tucked into tailored trousers, hair brushed just so, subtle highlights of makeup that softened my features. I looked different. People noticed. "Daniel, you look wonderful," Elena whispered, pressing her hand against mine. Her confidence radiated, giving me courage, even as my anxiety spiraled. Throughout the dinner, I navigated the room with polite smiles, careful words, and a posture that felt foreign yet oddly liberating. Every compliment felt like a test, every glance a challenge. Elena's friends were kind but curious, asking questions that revealed my transformation in small, deliberate ways. "Daniel, you've changed. You look brighter, happier," one said. I froze, my mind racing. Was it noticeable? Too noticeable? Could they tell it was Elena's plan that had guided me here? After dinner, Elena leaned close. "See? This is who you are becoming. Not just at home, in the world." Her words, warm and commanding, sent a shiver down my spine. I realized then that the line between Daniel Hart and Elena's vision of me was blurring. Every choice, every friendly suggestion, every small change had brought me to this point. Later, back home, I stared at myself in the mirror. My reflection was unfamiliar, and yet there was a part of me that couldn't deny it felt right. The blouse she had picked, the way my hair fell, even the faint shimmer of gloss on my lips, all of it fit. I looked at the calendar on the wall and realized how long this had been going on. Weeks of carefully orchestrated changes, weeks of subtle persuasion. And for the first time, I understood Elena's vision, not just the clothes or the routines, but the whole design of who I was meant to become. Fear and fascination warred inside me. I wanted to resist, yet I couldn't. I wanted to rebel, but every fiber of me leaned into her plan. And deep down, I feared the moment when the world would fully see the transformation she had orchestrated, and when I would finally have to confront how much of Daniel Hart was left. The following weekend, Elena presented what she called a fun little experiment. My stomach sank as she laid out a carefully folded outfit on the bed, a soft lavender dress paired with simple ballet flats and a delicate scarf. "Try this on," she said, her voice calm but decisive. "I want you to see yourself fully." I froze. "A dress? Me?" My heart pounded. "Elena, I don't know if—" She interrupted softly, pressing a finger to my lips. "It's just for a few hours. At home, no one else needs to see. I promise. Trust me." Her eyes held that unwavering certainty, the same calm patience she'd used all along. Against my better judgment, I nodded. Slipping into the dress, I felt a strange combination of vulnerability and comfort. The fabric hugged my shoulders and waist lightly, flowing over my legs. I stared at myself in the mirror, unsure whether to laugh or cry. Elena stepped closer, smoothing the dress over my frame. "You look incredible," she said, her hands lingering a moment longer than necessary. "Do you feel it?" I swallowed. "Feel what?" "Yourself," she replied simply. "The version of you I've been helping you uncover." I felt dizzy. I wanted to reject her words, to insist that I was still Daniel Hart, but a part of me deep, quiet, and undeniable felt a thrill. I had never felt this seen, this guided. For the next few hours, she took me through small tasks, walking around the house, arranging flowers, even reading aloud from one of her novels. Every motion felt foreign yet natural, like stepping into someone else's shoes and discovering they fit perfectly. She watched me with a mixture of pride and satisfaction, correcting minor gestures, adjusting my posture, gently coaxing me into movements that emphasized the softer, more refined version of myself. By evening, when I finally removed the dress, I noticed something I hadn't expected, a lingering awareness of who I had been just hours before. Elena had pushed me into unfamiliar territory, yet I hadn't resisted. I had complied, and even more, there was a part of me that wanted to do it again. She smiled, brushing my hair back and whispering, "You're getting better at this. You're learning to trust me and yourself." I nodded silently, feeling a strange mix of fear, excitement, and helplessness. Every boundary I thought I had set for myself had been tested, and every time, I found myself moving willingly into the role she designed. It was clear, Elena's plan was no longer subtle. It had escalated to something undeniable, and I was caught in its gravity. The weekend arrived with a tension I could hardly shake. Elena had suggested attending a friend's garden party, a casual gathering, she said, but with the perfect opportunity to show your confidence. I knew exactly what that meant. My heart pounded as I opened the closet. Laid out before me was an ensemble I never would have chosen myself, a soft, flowing blouse, slim trousers that hinted at my form, and delicate loafers. Elena stood behind me, adjusting the outfit with meticulous care. "You look amazing," she whispered. "Just be yourself. Everyone will notice, but in the best way." I tried to swallow my panic, telling myself it was just a small gathering. But as we drove there, I felt every pair of eyes like a spotlight. Each glance from a stranger, each polite nod from someone who didn't yet know, made my stomach twist. When we arrived, Elena's friends greeted us warmly, complimenting me in ways that made me uncomfortable. "Daniel, you look so different." "In a good way," one exclaimed. I forced a polite smile, nodding. Every compliment was a dagger and a bomb at the same time. I was exposed, yet praised. Elena squeezed my hand, silently reminding me to maintain composure. She led me around the garden, introducing me not just as her husband, but as her partner, someone who had grown more confident, more elegant, in ways I hadn't imagined. Every interaction felt like a test. I stumbled through small talk, felt my cheeks flush at casual remarks about my appearance, and yet Elena's quiet guidance steadied me. At one point, a close friend of hers leaned in, lowering her voice. "Elena, you've really transformed him, haven't you?" Elena smiled, but her hand on my back pressed gently. "It's been a journey," she said. "He's embraced it beautifully." I froze. Their eyes were on me, scrutinizing, curious. For the first time, I realized this wasn't just private. My transformation had moved into the public sphere, and there was no hiding it now. By the end of the evening, I felt exhausted, exhilarated, and profoundly exposed. Elena walked beside me, her presence calm, confident, and commanding. I understood then that this was not a casual experiment, it was her plan unfolding in full view, and I was entirely in her orbit. Driving home, I asked, voice barely audible, "How far are you going with this?" Her response was simple, unflinching. "As far as it needs to go. Until the world sees the person I know you are, and until you see yourself that way, too." The words sank into me like a tide. There was no turning back. The days after the garden party were quiet, almost deceptively calm. But beneath the surface, something inside me was shifting. Every glance in the mirror, every touch of a soft fabric, every compliment from Elena or her friends tugged at a part of me I hadn't known existed. I began noticing details I had ignored before. The way my hands looked after she guided me through her skincare routine, the way my shoulders softened when she adjusted my posture, the subtle change in my voice when I spoke as she instructed. Each observation was a revelation, and each made me question who I really was anymore. One evening, I sat alone in the living room, the soft glow of the lamp casting shadows across the walls. I held the blouse Elena had bought me last week, tracing the silky material with my fingers. It smelled faintly of her perfume. My heart raced as I realized that wearing it no longer felt strange, it felt natural. Elena entered quietly, watching me with that calm intensity that both comforted and unnerved me. "Thinking about it?" she asked. I nodded, words caught in my throat. "It's different. I feel different." She stepped closer, brushing a strand of hair from my forehead. "Good. That's exactly how you're supposed to feel. Embrace it. Don't fight it." I looked into her eyes, searching for control, for reassurance, and perhaps a way to resist. But there was nothing but patience, certainty, and the quiet authority that had guided me from the start. The next morning, she suggested we try a day together in my new routine. Not at home, but out in public, walking through the neighborhood, running errands. My chest tightened. "Everyone will notice," I said, almost pleading. "Exactly," she replied softly. "It's time you became comfortable in the world as who you are." And so I followed, each step weighted with tension. Passers-by glanced, some complimented, some looked curious. My pulse raced, but Elena's hand on my back was steadying. By the end of the day, I felt a strange mix of vulnerability and empowerment. Elena's plan wasn't just about clothing or posture, it was about reshaping me entirely, emotionally and socially. That night, lying awake, I realized how deeply I had been drawn into her vision. My old identity, the man I had been, was still there, but fading. And part of me didn't want it back. I didn't know it yet, but Elena had set the stage for the final steps of her plan. And I would soon face choices that would test not just my appearance, but who I truly was inside. A week later, Elena announced she had planned a special dinner at a new restaurant downtown. Her tone was casual, but her eyes held that unmistakable glint of control. "I want you to wear the new ensemble I picked," she said, placing a soft pink blouse and tailored skirt on the bed. "It's elegant, confident. You'll see how people respond." I stared at the clothes, anxiety coiling in my stomach. "Elena, it's a skirt." "I can't." Her hand touched mine, gentle but firm. "You can. And you will. Trust me." I hesitated, but her calm certainty made resistance feel futile. Sliding into the outfit, I felt a mixture of embarrassment, vulnerability, and unexpectedly a sense of alignment. The fabric was soft, the cut flattering, the colors chosen perfectly to highlight the softer contours of my frame. At the restaurant, the moment we entered, I felt every gaze. Some whispered, some stared openly. My face burned, but Elena's hand on my arm was steadying. She introduced me with warmth and pride, emphasizing not my attire, but the confidence I carried. As we dined, her friends complimented the change, remarking on how naturally I carried myself. Each word, each glance, made me painfully aware of how far I had come and how much farther she intended to take me. After dinner, she suggested a small detour through a busy shopping street. The crowd was larger, strangers everywhere, and the attention felt magnified. My pulse quickened with every look, every subtle smile directed my way. "Elena, everyone can see," I whispered, gripping her hand. "And they will," she replied softly. "But that's the point. You're not hiding anymore. You're embracing who you are." The truth hit me hard. Elena wasn't just guiding me at home. She was preparing me for the world to witness the transformation she had designed. And as uncomfortable as it felt, a part of me thrilled at the challenge, at the undeniable validation of being seen. By the time we returned home, I was physically exhausted and emotionally drained. Yet, lying in bed, I realized something profound. The boundaries I had thought defined me, my clothing, my posture, my self-image, were dissolving. Elena's plan had not just changed my appearance, it was reshaping my entire identity, one carefully orchestrated step at a time. And I knew, without a doubt, that the next move she had planned would test me in ways I had never imagined. The following days were heavy with anticipation. Elena had hinted at a gathering with her colleagues, an intimate dinner at her office, where she insisted I accompany her. My stomach churned at the thought. This wasn't just the neighborhood or a casual party. This was a space filled with people who knew her professionally, people who would notice even the slightest change in me. When she presented my outfit, a flowing silk blouse in a muted lavender shade paired with tailored trousers, I froze. "Elena, really?" I asked, voice trembling. She placed a hand gently on my shoulder. "It's not about them noticing, Daniel. It's about you noticing yourself. Confidence isn't just for private spaces anymore." I nodded reluctantly, trying to steady the nerves twisting in my chest. As I walked beside her through the office lobby, every step felt heavier than the last. My reflection in the glass doors caught my eye. I barely recognized myself. Softer shoulders, delicate hands, an unfamiliar calm in my expression. Her colleagues greeted us warmly, their eyes flicking between us, curious yet kind. Compliments arrived in quick succession. "Daniel, you look amazing," one said. My stomach flipped. Elena's hand on my back reminded me to stand tall, to smile, to breathe through the anxiety knotting my chest. Halfway through the evening, a senior colleague made a casual comment about how naturally I carried myself, how graceful my movements were. The words stung and thrilled simultaneously. I realized in that moment that Elena's influence had extended far beyond home or private routines. I was no longer just Daniel Hart. I was a version of myself meticulously sculpted by her vision, and everyone here could see it. After dinner, as we walked back to the car, I whispered, I don't know if I can keep doing this. It's too much." Elena turned to me, her eyes calm and unwavering. "It's never too much when it's who you truly are. You've fought yourself for so long, Daniel. Now it's time to stop resisting and start embracing." Her words sank in, leaving me unsteady, yet strangely relieved. For the first time, I realized that the fear I had carried wasn't just about appearances, it was about surrendering control. And perhaps, deep down, I wanted to surrender. Back at home, she guided me to the mirror. "Look at yourself," she whispered. "Really look. This is you, Daniel. All of you. Strong, elegant, complete." I stared at the reflection, the stranger who was me, and understood that the journey Elena had planned was far from over. The final steps would demand more courage, more vulnerability, and a complete acceptance of the path she had carefully laid out. And I knew the climax of her plan was just ahead. The day Elena had hinted at finally arrived a formal gala she insisted we attend together. My nerves had never been this raw. I stood in front of the mirror, adjusting the pale lavender dress she had chosen for me, hands trembling slightly. The fabric clung gently to my frame, the cut elegant and precise, flowing naturally over my silhouette. "Elena, everyone will see," I whispered, my voice barely audible. She approached, brushing a loose strand of hair behind my ear. "Yes, and that's exactly why you're going," she said softly. "You've come so far, Daniel. It's time the world sees you too." Her words, calm and commanding, left me both terrified and strangely exhilarated. I could feel the culmination of weeks, no, months of guidance, persuasion, and careful shaping. Every outfit, every touch, every suggestion had led to this moment. As we arrived at the gala, the lights shimmered off polished surfaces, and the room was alive with conversation, laughter, and music. Guests in evening attire mingled, glasses clinking. I felt every eye immediately, the subtle stares, the soft whispers, but Elena's hand in mine grounded me, giving me courage. She introduced me as her partner, emphasizing my elegance, poise, and confidence. Compliments flowed instantly. "You look stunning. What an amazing transformation. Daniel, you carry yourself beautifully." I froze, my chest tightening. The words were intoxicating and terrifying all at once. I realized that this was more than public exposure, this was affirmation. Every comment, every glance, every subtle admiration validated the version of myself Elena had been guiding me to become. Halfway through the evening, Elena whispered, "Dance with me." My heart raced. I had never danced like this before, under the gaze of so many, feeling the soft fabric of my dress brush against me as I followed her lead. Every step, every turn, reminded me of the subtle control she had exercised, shaping not just my appearance, but my confidence, my posture, my very presence. By the end of the night, I understood that the transformation was complete in public eyes. Daniel Hart, the man I had known, was gone, replaced by someone more refined, more elegant, more attuned to Elena's vision. And yet, somewhere deep inside, the feeling of fear and exhilaration mingled, leaving me dizzy and unsteady. As we left the gala, I whispered, "Elena, it's too much. I don't know who I am anymore." She smiled softly, pressing a gentle kiss to my cheek. "You're exactly who you're meant to be. And the journey isn't over yet. There's still one more step." Her words chilled me and thrilled me at the same time. The final act of her plan awaited, and I knew it would demand everything: trust, vulnerability, and the courage to surrender completely. The night after the gala, I couldn't sleep. My mind replayed every glance, every word, every whispered compliment from the evening before. Elena had orchestrated everything perfectly. Not only had the world seen this new version of me, but I had felt it too: every step, every gesture, every carefully guided movement. In the early morning, she woke me gently. "It's time," she said simply, her voice calm and unwavering. "Time for the final step." I swallowed hard. "The final step? Elena, I don't know if I..." She placed her hand over mine. "You do. You've come so far. Trust me." Her words were familiar now, soothing yet commanding. I nodded reluctantly, feeling the weight of the transformation that had consumed the past weeks. She led me to the bedroom, where a full-length mirror stood waiting. Beside it was a wardrobe filled with carefully chosen clothing, accessories, and shoes. But today, she selected a single outfit, a soft, flowing gown in a muted lilac shade, paired with delicate flats and subtle jewelry. "You've worn so many versions of yourself," she said softly, "but this is the one the world needs to see. And the one you need to see yourself." As I slipped into the gown, a strange calm settled over me. The fabric flowed effortlessly, shaping me into someone I had never imagined, but somehow recognized. Elena helped me adjust the neckline, the folds of the skirt, the subtle details that made the transformation complete. When I finally faced the mirror, I barely recognized the reflection. Daniel Hart, the man I had known, was gone. Staring back was someone elegant, poised, and undeniably confident. And yet, there was still a part of me that trembled with fear at how irreversible this had become. Elena stepped closer, her eyes locking onto mine. "You're beautiful," she whispered. "Not just in appearance, but in every way that matters. You trusted me, and now you can finally trust yourself." The words hit me with full force. I realized that every step of the journey, every subtle suggestion, every gentle correction, every carefully orchestrated moment had led me to this. The person I saw in the mirror was not someone forced upon me, but someone I had willingly become, piece by piece, under her guidance. Tears welled in my eyes, not from sadness, but from the overwhelming realization of how completely my life had changed. Elena wrapped her arms around me, holding me tight. "You're ready," she said. "Ready to step into the world as the person you've become." I nodded, swallowing the lump in my throat. I understood then that resistance was no longer an option, or perhaps that I no longer wanted to resist. Elena had reshaped me entirely, and I was beginning to see the strength, elegance, and identity she had patiently unveiled. The climax of her plan was complete. I was transformed, not just in appearance, but in spirit, in confidence, and in identity. And though fear lingered at the edges, it was matched by a deep sense of clarity and acceptance I had never known before. The morning after the final transformation, I stood by the window, sunlight streaming through the curtains, and stared at my reflection in the glass. The person looking back was someone I had never imagined, but someone I had slowly, irrevocably become. Elena entered quietly, holding 2 cups of tea. She set one beside me, her fingers lingering just a moment on my hand. "How does it feel?" she asked softly. I exhaled, uncertain. Strange and right at the same time. She smiled, her eyes glinting with satisfaction. "That's the balance of truth. The old you is afraid to be seen. The new you doesn't need permission. You're ready for the world now." A knock on the door startled me. Elena gestured for me to open it. Standing there was a delivery man holding a large package addressed to both of us. I accepted it. Curiosity piqued, but inside I felt a flicker of nervousness. As I opened the box, I found a carefully curated ensemble, another outfit, more daring than anything I had worn before, with a handwritten note from Elena. "For the next step, if you're ready." My heart raced. Another step? How far would this go? Was there a limit, or was this only the beginning? Elena's hand rested lightly on my shoulder. "Do you trust me?" she asked. I paused, looking down at the outfit, then back at her. A part of me trembled with fear, another part thrilled at the challenge. "Yes," I whispered, almost involuntarily. She smiled, eyes sparkling with the quiet intensity that had guided me all along. "Then there's no turning back. The world will see the person you've become, and soon, you will fully embrace it yourself." As she led me toward the mirror, the sunlight catching the folds of my gown, I realized one undeniable truth. This was only the beginning. And whatever came next, Elena's plan would continue, reshaping not just how the world saw me, but how I saw myself. The story ended not with resolution, but with anticipation, a quiet tension that left me standing on the edge of transformation, unsure where the next step would lead, yet unable to resist the path Elena had carefully crafted. If you enjoyed this journey, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Elena's plan isn't over, and neither is the story. Stay tuned for the next chapter, where new challenges and discoveries await.